Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the deep hush of a night garden, one of those places that doesn't exist on a map but unfolds around you the moment the sun tucks itself behind the horizon. You're barefoot, probably. The grass is cool, slick with dew. And the air? It tastes like mint and memory. You move slowly, shoulders loose, breath calm, each step pushing aside faint tendrils of jasmine, lavender, or maybe something stranger you can't quite name. Above, the sky is a diluted indigo, thinning into velvet. Somewhere in the distance, a moth flutters like a clumsy ballerina. But you're not here for the insects tonight. No, you're here for the ones who don't buzz or chirp or scurry away at the sound of your footsteps. You're here for the plants, the silent ones, the ones you thought just sat there. And you probably won't survive this. Truth bomb. Plants move. They twitch, curl, sweat, and sleep. They just do it so slowly and so quietly, you've never caught them in the act. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments. Where are you listening from? What time is it where you are right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lean in close to a fern, expecting nothing, but the frond trembles ever so slightly, as if it just realized you were watching. Most plant movement is like this, subtle, continuous, unbothered by your gaze. Botanists have a name for it, nyctinasty, the circadian nighttime motions plants make, like leaves folding or petals drooping. Not because they're sleepy per se, but because their internal clocks told them it's time to shift. And here's the twist. They've had these clocks long before humans figured out how to track time. The ancient Greeks believed heliotropism plants turning toward the sun was proof that divine forces were guiding nature. Cute, right? Today, we know it's more about ion channels and cellular hydraulics than gods with glowing hands. But the enchantment? Still totally valid. Picture a field of legumes. Yep, your everyday beans and peas. During the day, their leaves stand proud and spread wide. But as twilight descends, they fold in like hands at prayer. It's not a metaphor. Its mechanic cells at the base of the leaf inflate or deflate with water, tilting the leaf like a sleepy nod. The 18th century biologist Jean-Jacques Dortu de Meyron was one of the first to notice this. He stuck a mimosa plant in a dark cabinet and watched, amazed, as it still folded its leaves at nightfall, proving it wasn't reacting to sunlight, but to some internal schedule. Historians still argue whether Meyron understood just how groundbreaking that was. Some say he stumbled into genius. Others claim he knew exactly what he was doing. Either way, the mimosa didn't care. It was on plant time. You pause now, crouching beside a moonflower. At first glance, it looks still frozen, almost. But if you had a night-long time lapse and a bit of caffeine, you'd see it yawn open after dark, its white petals glowing like paper lanterns under the moon. Unlike daytime blossoms that flirt with bees, these guys cater to night visitors, moths, bats, sometimes even owls by accident. Their opening isn't just beautiful, it's strategic. And speaking of strategy, let's not forget the Venus flytrap. Technically not a night mover, but an excellent example of plant drama. It slams shut when prey touches those trigger hairs, but even this instant motion is governed by the same slow, deliberate mechanisms that power nyctinasty ion shifts, cell pressure, electrical signals. Yes, plants have bioelectricity. Yes, that's as wild as it sounds. Quirky side fact. In the 1970s, a few overly optimistic scientists tried hooking up polygraphs to houseplants, claiming they could feel pain or sense intention. One experiment involved imagining fire while standing near a philodendron. The results? Dubious at best, but it sure sparked the whole plants have emotions craze that inspired 1,000 stoned dorm debates and maybe a handful of songs by the Grateful Dead. But let's ground things again. Right now, under the stars, you walk past a patch of clover. At night, their leaves curl down and droop, another example of this secret choreography. Scientists think it helps conserve heat, avoid nighttime pests, or maybe even reduce water loss? The real answer? No one's totally sure. It could be all of the above, or something we haven't figured out yet. That's the thing about plants. They're both obvious and mysterious. They're everywhere, lining streets, cluttering window sills, growing between cracks in abandoned sidewalks. But we look right through them until they move. Then suddenly, we remember they're alive, that they've been alive far longer than we have, that they've survived mass extinctions, continental drift, and whatever we're doing to the climate, and they're still folding their leaves at night, still stretching toward moonlight, still humming in frequencies you'll never hear. You stop by a tree, maybe a ficus, maybe something older, and rest your hand on the bark. It's cool. The surface pulses gently, not with blood, but with water drawn from deep roots to distant branches. That's movement too. Even if it's so slow, it might as well be myth. All around you, the garden sways, not because of wind, but because of timing. An invisible rhythm. Some grand botanical symphony that doesn't need an audience. And you? You're lucky enough to be listening. You linger there, fingers still resting on that quiet trunk, wondering what else you've missed while sprinting through daylight. Behind you, a cluster of prayer plants unfurls in reverse. Their leaves, which stood tall and closed during the day, now lie flat open, breathing, as if sighing into sleep. You could almost swear they're less tense now, like they're off the clock, which in a way they are. Because yes, plants have clocks, not your standard alarm clock with snooze button type, but internal timekeepers built into their cells. And like yours, their circadian rhythm hums in roughly 24-hour loops. This is how they know when to photosynthesize, when to flower, when to fold up and check out for the night, all without a single brain cell. It's kind of unfair, honestly. You're over here struggling to fall asleep at 2 a.m., and meanwhile, a sunflower just knows when it's bedtime. Let's talk about those rhythms for a second. Every plant cell contains something called a circadian oscillator, kind of like a molecular grandfather clock. It ticks through chemical feedback loops. Genes turn on, proteins accumulate, then trigger the next round of biological events. Simple? Not really. Elegant? Absolutely. You've got similar loops running in your own cells right now, telling you when to yawn, when to digest, and when to start regretting your fourth espresso. But the cool thing? These plant rhythms aren't just internal. They coordinate across the whole organism. A vine on one side of the fence will open its leaves at exactly the same time as its twin tendrils on the other. Scientists have even found evidence that a plant's circadian rhythm affects how efficiently it photosynthesizes. And yes, plants forced onto a jet lag schedule tend to perform worse. One lab actually shifted a group of Arabidopsis plants, your friendly neighborhood model organism, to a 20-hour artificial cycle. The result? They grew slower, processed light less efficiently, and generally acted like you on a red-eye flight, confused, unproductive, slightly droopy. Historians still argue whether Darwin, back in his long-bearded genius days, understood the full depth of these rhythms. We know he studied plant movement. He wrote an entire book called The Power of Movement in Plants in 1880 with his son Francis. In it, he detailed experiments with beans, radishes, and even clover, mapping their slow pirouettes under different lighting conditions. But did he grasp the molecular ballet ticking inside each leaf? Unlikely. Still, his curiosity about the how of plant motion gave modern chronobiologists a hefty shove in the right direction. And speaking of fringe science, let's dip into the tale of Cleve Baxter again, the guy who thought plants could sense human emotion. While his lie detector escapades have been mostly debunked, his work did inspire more rigorous research into bioelectrical signals in plants. Turns out, plants do use electrical impulses to communicate internally, but more on that later. For now, let's keep tiptoeing through the moonlit lab of nature. You stop beside a small group of oxalis, the cute clover-looking plant that likes to pretend it's magic. In bright daylight, their leaves open up in 3 cheerful flaps. At night, those same flaps fold down like a sleepy butterfly's wings. Some believe this nightly folding helps reduce fungal attacks by limiting moisture buildup. Others think it's a predator avoidance tactic, making them less appealing to nocturnal grazers. Or maybe they're just introverts who need personal space after 8 p.m. Your foot brushes against a garden pot and, oh, someone else is awake. A night blooming cereus, one of those dramatic desert flowers that waits all year to bloom exactly once at night for a few glorious hours, and then, like a diva on a world tour, collapses by sunrise. Why? Because its chosen pollinators like sphinx moths and bats only show up at night. To miss that brief performance window would mean no future baby Sariuses. You gotta admire the hustle. And yet, none of this movement is visible without patience. If your eyes were cameras set on long exposure, you'd see everything differently. Leaves slowly repositioning, flowers angling themselves toward the sky, stems performing micro adjustments like stretching after a nap. It's happening right now, just slower than your nervous system is built to detect. There's something deeply satisfying about that, isn't there? In a world obsessed with hustle and alerts and double speed playback, plants are just out here, vibing, syncing with the moon, honoring their routines. No need for productivity apps or sleep tracking rings, just water, light, and time. And yet, even these chilled out green beings can suffer from bad timing. Streetlights and urban glare mess with plant rhythms in a big way. Ever noticed a tree still fully leaved in late fall, even though every other plant has moved on? That's often thanks to nearby artificial light confusing its sense of season. Poor guy thinks it's still July. Scientists call this ecological light pollution, and it's not just rude, it's dangerous. Trees that don't shed their leaves in time are more vulnerable to frost. Flowers that bloom too early might miss their pollinators entirely. It's like jet lag, but with way higher stakes. Still, plants are surprisingly resilient. Give them a few dark nights, and many will reset themselves. Like a forest pressing restart. And speaking of forests, you'll want to remember this feeling, the quiet pulse, the knowledge that you're walking among millions of individual timekeepers, all perfectly aligned to something invisible. Later, when we reach the dreamers, the plants that don't just respond to moonlight, but possibly remember it, you'll appreciate this rhythm even more. For now, look up. The moon's higher now, casting sharper shadows across the leaves. Somewhere nearby, a spider spins its web, but your eyes stay locked on a leaf, one single leaf curling ever so slightly inward as the night deepens. It's not magic. It's not a ghost. It's just biology. And it's beautiful. You walk on, slower now, as if the earth's spinning has nudged your pace down a few notches. A gravel crunch here, a soft brush of vine against your ankle there. It all feels intentional, like the garden is guiding you somewhere. And in a way, it is, because you're about to listen in on something few ever notice. The quiet hydraulics, the pulsing fluids, the sighing of stomata as plants breathe in and out, not with lungs, but with pores so small they make your skin's goosebumps look chunky. Right now, every plant around you is humming. Not audibly, not exactly. But if you could shrink down to the cellular level, you'd hear a symphony of liquid movement. Water pulled up through xylem vessels, those long straw-like tubes running through stems and trunks racing upward, thanks to a mix of root pressure, surface tension, and capillary action. It's not the loudest circulation system on the planet, but it is among the most efficient. Fun fact, a single tree can move hundreds of liters of water a day, silently and without complaint. Meanwhile, your plumbing system makes a racket just flushing a toilet, and that's just the water. There's also the sugar highway phloem channels, which deliver nutrients downward from the photosynthesizing leaves to the rest of the plant. This whole system, constantly flowing, even at night, especially at night, because when the sun goes down, the traffic changes lanes. Photosynthesis stops, but respiration kicks in. Cells burn sugars for energy, fueling quiet repairs, slow stretching, and if you're a growing bud late night sprouting. You crouch beside a vine now, brushing a finger against its stem. Smooth, cool, And just beneath the surface, liquid columns rise and fall like tides. It's a gentle pulse, governed by osmotic gradients and microscopic valves. Nothing flashy, but effective. Now look closer. See those tiny dots on the underside of the leaf? Those are stomata, essentially little mouths that open and close depending on the plant's needs. During the day, they open wide to gulp in carbon dioxide. At night, most of them close, holding in moisture like secrets. But not all. Some desert plants actually open their stomata at night to conserve water during the blistering day. It's called KM photosynthesis, short for crassulacean acid metabolism, because plant scientists never met a complex word they didn't love. Succulents, pineapples, cacti. They're the poster children for this quirky life strategy. While you're sleeping, they're breathing, quietly exchanging gases, trapping CO2 and organic acids, and prepping for the next day's sunlight like a student cramming at midnight. Historians still argue whether ancient desert cultures, like the Nabateans, understood the mechanics of these water-saving wonders. What we do know is that their agricultural techniques, terraced slopes, fog harvesting, deep planting, suggest an intuitive grasp of how desert plants handled hydration. These folks might not have known the word stomata, but they sure knew how to keep them happy. You shift slightly, and the breeze carries a scent you hadn't noticed, green and earthy with a sharp undertone. That's the smell of plant oils, many of which intensify after dark. Not for your benefit, but to communicate, repel insects, or attract helpful critters. Here's where things get really interesting. Plants send chemical signals not just above ground, but below it too. Beneath your feet, roots are having an entire cocktail party. They release exudates chemical compounds that change the behavior of nearby fungi, bacteria, even other plants. A pea plant under aphid attack might release compounds through its roots to warn neighbors, essentially saying, "Heads up, bugs inbound." In response, nearby plants might ramp up their own defenses. And yes, these signals can persist through the night. Some researchers believe these underground messages are more active after dark, when energy isn't being poured into photosynthesis. It's like a secret night shift communication, resource distribution, subtle sabotage if the neighbors get too ambitious. Cue the quirky tidbit. In one experiment, scientists found that bean plants connected by a shared fungal network, a mycorrhizal bridge if you want the nerd term, responded to threats faster than isolated ones. The researchers weren't quite ready to call it plant consciousness, but let's just say the beans were behaving like they had a group chat going. And speaking of behavior, you ever heard of plant memory? That's right. Certain species exhibit a kind of short-term recall. The sensitive plant Mimosa pudica, for example, folds its leaves when touched. But if you keep touching it repeatedly without hurting it, the plant eventually stops reacting. It's like it learns, "Oh, it's you again. Ugh." What's more, this desensitization can last for hours, possibly even overnight. Scientists still don't agree on how memory works in plants. Some say it's just cellular fatigue. Others argue it's evidence of a primitive learning mechanism. There's no consensus yet, but it's being studied seriously. You might not want to tell your houseplants your secrets just yet, but maybe don't insult them either, just in case. You reach out now and gently cup a lavender stem in your palm. The leaves brush your skin, delicate but purposeful, like the plant is exhaling. Around you, the air shifts. Night deepens. Somewhere above, the stars start to puncture the clouds. And it strikes you. This entire world, this entire network has been here the whole time. You just weren't tuned in. Every rustle, every bend, every sigh of fluid through xylem and phloem, it's not random. It's rhythm. It's timing. It's life without a spotlight, unfolding in perfect coordination with the planets turning. And maybe, just maybe, it's trying to tell you something. No rush, just listen. You're sitting now, legs crossed on a soft patch of moss that feels like nature's version of a memory foam mattress. Around you, the plants keep pulsing tiny hydraulic systems, root networks, stomatal whispers. But something else is rising too. Something quieter, older, memory, and not yours. Let's pull the thread from that last section and tug a little harder. Because the deeper you go into the nighttime behavior of plants, the stranger it gets. Some plants don't just react to darkness, they anticipate it. They seem to remember when dusk should fall, and even if you throw off their schedule with artificial light, they still begin to prepare for night the same way, at the same internal time. A tobacco plant, for instance, will start producing certain defensive chemicals as evening approaches, even if it's been stuck in a lab with constant light. It's like it knows what time it is. And this knowledge isn't just reaction, it's preparation. There's that phrase again, plant memory. Only now, you're starting to believe it might not be science fiction after all. You lean back, gazing up at the fronds of a tree fern. Its leaves are curled slightly inward for the night, like a sleeping bat. You wonder if this fern were exposed to consistent harm or comfort at a particular hour, would it learn to expect it? Would it change its behavior? Some studies say yes. Others, as always, say maybe, or not quite yet. Historians still argue whether indigenous cultures, like the Maori of New Zealand or the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, intuited this plant memory through observation. Their agricultural and medicinal traditions often relied on knowledge passed down orally for generations. When to harvest, when not to touch, when the plant wanted to be used. Western science is only recently catching up to those traditions, using controlled trials to verify what local knowledge grasped through intuition. And here's your fringe fact of the hour. Researchers have actually recorded bioelectrical activity in plants using EEG-like sensors. That's right. Some plants produce slow, low-frequency waves that look suspiciously like brain waves. The patterns change in response to environmental stimuli. A loud sound, a sudden touch, even the approach of a shadow. Let's not get too carried away here. Plants don't have neurons, no frontal cortex, no thoughts of dinner plans or existential dread. But these electrical changes are real, and they're complex. They represent a sort of awareness, even if it's completely alien to the way we define it. It's like a quiet noticing, a shift in state, a pause and recalibration. You're watching a moonflower now, Ipomoea alba, as it prepares to bloom. Its petals are slowly unfurling, ivory white in the moonlight, each edge tinged with a soft glow. These flowers only open at night. Their scent is strongest under the stars, timed to perfection for nocturnal moths. You think about the precision involved, the temperature sensing, the light detection, the hormonal triggers that set off this cascade. It's all so coordinated, so familiar. Because here's the kicker. Plants use many of the same chemicals that you do. They produce serotonin, melatonin, even GABA, the neurotransmitter that helps calm your nervous system. In fact, some studies have shown that melatonin levels in certain plants peak at night, just like in your body. Coincidence? Probably not. Scientists still aren't sure why plants need melatonin. One theory is that it helps them deal with oxidative stress, the same way it helps protect your brain. Another posits that it plays a role in their internal clocks, syncing them with light-dark cycles. Either way, it's a strange, quiet overlap. You lying under a fern, half asleep. The fern also winding down with a dose of cellular melatonin. You're not so different after all. You shift slightly, trying not to disturb the soft rustle of the underbrush. Somewhere in the near distance, a group of nyctinastic flowers, those that open and close depending on the time of day, are doing their thing. Their petals close like eyelids. Their scent fades. They're done with the day's work. Remember the mimosa pudica from earlier? There's another layer to that story. In one experiment, researchers dropped droplets of water onto the plant repeatedly to trigger the leaf-folding reflex. At first, it closed every time. But eventually, it stopped responding, not out of fatigue, but seemingly because it had learned the stimulus wasn't harmful. Even more fascinating? When placed back into its environment weeks later, the plant still didn't react to the same harmless stimulus, as if it remembered. There's no brain, no synapses, And yet, something persists. You stare now into a thicket of nightshade, a plant infamous for its toxins, but also used historically in low doses for ritual and medicine. In some cultures, it was believed that nightshade could dream, that it saw what you could not. Modern science doesn't back that up, obviously, but there's a poetic truth in it. Plants do react to touch, light, vibration, time, sound, and even scent. Some species will even change behavior based on the chemicals released by injured neighbors. Which raises the question, where does memory end and instinct begin? Maybe plants don't remember in the way we do. Maybe they just shift, slightly, permanently. And maybe in that shift is all the memory they need. You glance at the path ahead. The garden is darker now, deeper. Every plant you pass is folded in on itself or quietly pulsing beneath the surface. The air smells different, more alive. There's a sense of presence here that wasn't obvious in daylight, as if the forest, relieved of its photosynthetic duties, finally has time to think or dream. You rest your head against the moss, eyelids drifting lower. You're sinking up slowly with everything around you. Your breath matches the rhythm of the wind in the trees. Your heartbeat, the subtle surge of sap in a nearby trunk. It's all connected. You knew that in theory. Now your body feels it. And somewhere inside the vine curling across your ankle, the memory of moonlight stirs. The moss beneath you is damp, but not unpleasant. It's the kind of cool softness that settles into your spine like a whisper. Overhead, leaves sway in slow motion, only barely disturbed by the breeze. The world feels quieter now. Or maybe you've just tuned in. Because this isn't silence. It's the softest orchestra imaginable. Each plant, each root and stem, every curling tendril around you, it's performing. Not for anyone. Just because that's what life does when no one's watching. And right now, you're catching the final act. You glance toward a cluster of heliotropic plants, those sun followers, like sunflowers and marigolds. During the day, they turn their blooms toward the sun. At night, they reset, swiveling quietly back to the east in anticipation of dawn. Even now, in the dark, their stems are creaking ever so slowly, stretching, remembering the light. It's not just a reaction, it's choreography. These plants have internal clock circadian rhythms, just like you. Governed by genes, light receptors, and chemical feedback loops, they tick forward hour by hour, guiding everything from leaf movements to hormone release. And even when kept in complete darkness, these rhythms continue out of sync, maybe, but still ticking. Some orchids can bloom precisely on a 24-hour cycle without ever seeing the sun. Some beans droop their leaves at exactly the same time each night. And in 1729, a French astronomer named Jean-Jacques Dortu de Méran noticed that a mimosa plant kept in total darkness still opened its leaves in the morning and closed them at night. That was nearly 300 years ago. And it's still blowing minds. Historians still argue whether early astronomer botanists understood the full implications of this observation. But it planted the seed pun mildly intended for the science of chronobiology, the study of internal clocks in all living things, even you. That's right, you, the listener, the gentle observer with a fan humming beside your bed. You run on a rhythm, too. Your body produces cortisol in the morning to wake you, and melatonin at night to sedate you. Your blood pressure dips, your core temperature drops, and your brain waves slow down, all timed like a symphony to the Earth's spin. You're not falling asleep, you're sinking. And so are the plants. Many of them use the night to heal, to grow, to signal to one another. There's even evidence that root growth accelerates in some species after dark. That makes sense. Fewer predators, more moisture, less stress from light-based oxidation. But there's also something poetic about it. The idea that growth doesn't always happen in the spotlight. Sometimes the real transformation takes place in silence, under soil, away from view. You hear a soft snap, not threatening, just deliberate. A seed pod has popped open somewhere nearby. Some plants use explosive mechanisms to spread their seeds, and timing is everything. Many of them wait for nightfall, when the air is cooler, the humidity higher, the predators fewer. Evolution is sneaky like that. And here comes our quirky tidbit. Some seeds only germinate under moonlight, no joke. Certain alpine species are sensitive to lunar cycles. Others, like lunaria, sometimes called honesty or silver dollar plant, have folklore linking their blooming cycles to the phases of the moon. Science is still unpacking whether it's coincidence, correlation, or something more intentional. But the pattern is there. The rhythm is real. You exhale slowly, eyes tracing the silhouette of a tree overhead. A fig, maybe, or an oak. You're too tired to tell. But you remember something you once heard, that trees under stress can scream. Not audibly, at least not to you, but they release ultrasonic vibrations when their water levels drop too low. The kind of noise only insects or sensitive lab equipment can detect. These aren't conscious cries for help, but they are real signals, markers of stress, tiny ruptures in water columns that reverberate outward. It's a weirdly comforting thought, because it means the forest isn't passive. It means the plants are listening, reacting, adjusting, just like you. And maybe, when they're not stressed, they're singing too, in the frequency of stillness, in the rhythm of growth, in that slow, strange cadence you've been learning to hear all night. You rest your head fully now, nestled between roots like the forest tucked you in. And above, the plants continue their slow, secret work, the flowering, the folding, the repair, the rest. Wind down, final 300 words. And now, as your breath deepens and your limbs grow heavier, the rhythms around you soften even further. The vines loosen their grip on their trellises. The leaves settle into their final night poses. Roots continue their quiet tunneling beneath you, slow, determined content. The garden, which once seemed alive with motion and mystery, now feels like a lullaby. Everything is still moving, yes, but it's a different kind of movement now, not one that demands your attention, just one that gently pulls you deeper into calm. The chemical messages quiet to murmurs. The petals fold like blankets. Even the scent of the air seems to stretch itself thinner, more diffuse, as if the very molecules are winding down for the night. You belong here, in this silence, not watching, not listening, just being. Let the rhythms carry you of sap rising, leaves breathing, petals dreaming, and know that while you sleep, the plants will still be here, still pulsing, still shifting, still syncing with the great ticking clock of the earth. You are not separate from them. You never were. Now breathe out. Let the rhythm take over and fade, gently, into rest.